Aiden Clark, F-R-U-E-N-D. The hero has returned!
Friend, you slept with my fiancée?
I stood on my front porch, clutching a worn army rucksack, unable to force myself to press the doorknob. 5 years. 5 long, draining years I had dreamed of this moment. I pictured the door swinging open and Emily running toward me, smiling, her eyes lit with joy. She would be wearing that same light blue dress she loved, and her hair would smell like lavender. Sure, I came home on brief leaves when they let me, but today I was coming back for good to my own house. But standing there in the cold Oregon morning, something felt off. Too quiet. No movement behind the windows, no lights inside. Only gray clouds overhead and a distant crow's call from the woods beyond town. I turned the key slowly in the lock. The door opened with a soft creak that echoed down the empty hallway. "Emily," my voice sounded dull, as if I were shouting down a well. "Emmy, it's me. I'm home." Silence. Only the ticking of the wall clock, the same one that had hung there since my grandmother's day. I stepped inside, and something clamped tight around my chest. The house was clean, tidy, and empty. Too empty. No coat of hers on the hook by the door, no shoes she always kicked off right at the threshold. I walked into the living room, my army boots thudding on the wood floor. Everything sat in its place. The couch, the TV, the same rug we bought together 3 years before my last deployment. But something was missing. Photos. The mantel held empty frames, and the wall where our pictures had hung was bare now, faint pale rectangles ghosting the darkened wallpaper. My heart hammered faster. I headed into the kitchen and stopped at the sight of a white envelope on the table. The soldier in me read the scene instantly, the envelope dead center on the table, like it had been staged there. Beside it stood my favorite mug, the one I used for coffee every morning before shipping out. I stepped to the table, hands shaking as I picked up the envelope. My name was on it, written in Emily's familiar hand-rounded letters, tilted just a little to the side. I tore it open and began to read. "Aiden, my dear Aiden, I don't know how to start this, because no words can explain what happened or make your pain any easier. I waited. I truly waited. The first year, the second, I read your letters 100 times, slept in your t-shirt, marked the days on the calendar. And then something broke inside me. I felt like a ghost in my own life, a woman waiting for a husband she might never see alive again." I paused, rereading that last line. Might never see alive again. She had lost faith. She had decided I wasn't coming back. Tom was always around. He came by when things were hard. He supported me, listened when I cried from loneliness in the middle of the night. At first it was just friendship, but then, God, Aiden, I didn't want this to happen. I fought those feelings for months, hated myself for every thought about him. But he is here, he is alive, he is real. And you were just on paper, in words, in memories that slowly blurred. Tom, my old friend Tom Reeder, the guy I played football with in high school, drank beer with on the lake shore, made plans for the future with. I introduced him to Emily at that barbecue 5 years ago, a week before I shipped out. He said she was amazing, that I was a lucky man. I smiled and said, "I know, buddy, I know." My fingers crushed the paper. Something dark, hot, and wild rose in my chest. I kept reading, though every line felt like a knife. We've been together for 8 months. I moved in with him last summer. I know I must seem like the worst person on earth to you, and maybe I am. But I couldn't keep living in suspension, between hope and despair. I want you to know, I loved you. I truly did. You were my hero, my protector. But sometimes heroes don't come back, and I had to learn to live with that idea. Forgive me, if you can. Emily. I stood motionless, staring at the letter, the words swimming. 8 months. She had gone to him 8 months ago. And all those months I wrote her from Kandahar about my guys, about the heat, about how much I missed her. I shared plans for our future, described how we'd set up a nursery on the 2nd floor. And she was already living with Tom. A shrill whine split my head. High, piercing the sound that comes a second before a blast. I knew it wasn't real, Knew I was safe here in Oregon, but my heart was already in my throat and sweat sprang onto my palms. "No," I whispered, clamping my hands over my ears. "No, no, no." The whine grew louder. I shut my eyes and I was there again. In Afghanistan, in that cursed valley where everything went to hell. Dust. Dust everywhere. I'm running, radio chatter in my ears. Zach's voice. "Captain, they're on the left. It's a damned ambush." An explosion. The ground jumps. Someone screams, but I can't tell who. Another blast closer. My face slams the dirt, grit in my mouth. "Aiden, Aiden, you good, man?" Zach again. He leans over me, smiling even with blood all over his face. "Don't check out, boss. Too early for the other side. You gotta get back to your girl, remember? That knockout Emily." My eyes snapped open. I was in the kitchen, crushing the letter so hard the paper tore. The wine was gone. Only the clock ticking and my ragged, uneven breathing. Zach. He didn't come home. 2 months after that blast. Different ambush, different cursed patch of desert. I watched them carry him out in a black bag, and I couldn't do a thing. I was in the hospital myself with shrapnel in my leg. Now Emily was gone too. Everything I held on to, everything that kept me alive in those hellish months, turned out to be an illusion. I walked slowly to the living room. On the mantel sat one photo I hadn't noticed at first. Me and Emily at the lake 3 years ago. She's laughing, her hair kicked up by the wind, and I'm holding her from behind, happy, carefree. That Aiden felt like someone else now, a stranger. I picked up the photo and stared at it a long time. Then, without thinking, I wound up and hurled it at the wall. The glass cracked with a sharp pop, and the shards scattered across the floor. It didn't help. Only emptiness. A wide, cold emptiness where my heart used to be. I sank onto the couch and buried my face in my hands. Fragments spun in my head. Emily's letters, her promises to wait, Zach joking that we'd all be at my wedding, blasts, blood, and Emily again, only now in Tom's arms. Rain started tapping the window. I sat in the dim living room, surrounded by pieces of my old life, and had no idea what to do next. The war was over, but the peace I found here was scarier than any mission. Out there, I knew who the enemy was. Here, I didn't even know who I was fighting: Tom, Emily, or myself. I stood and went to the window, watching the rain wash the dust off my car in the driveway. In 5 years, everything had changed. The town felt smaller, the houses older, the sky grayer. Had the town changed, or had I? I knew the answer. I had changed. I left an idealistic soldier who believed in justice and duty. I came back, an empty shell filled with scars and memories that wouldn't let me rest even here, thousands of miles from the sand. Worst of all, I didn't know if I could ever be that Aiden again, the one who could love, trust, dream about a future. The war didn't just take my friends. It took a piece of me, and it seems Emily figured that out before I did. Try again. The morning after I came back, I woke on the couch with a stiff neck and a head that felt like a tank had rolled over it. The shards from the broken frame still littered the floor, yesterday made into evidence. I stood, every muscle complaining, and shuffled to the bathroom. The man in the mirror was a stranger. Sunken eyes, stubble, a scar on my left cheek from the fragment that nearly took my eye. I ran a hand over my face and watched my fingers tremble. Not like after a firefight, but enough to notice. The phone rang somewhere in the living room. I found it between the couch cushions. Mom. Of course, Mom. She'd called last night too, but I hadn't picked up. Third time this morning. I drew a deep breath and answered. "Morning, Mom," I said, my voice rougher than I expected. "Aiden, finally. I've been so worried, honey. You're not answering at all. I didn't sleep all night. I thought maybe something happened to you." Her voice was thick with the worry she tried to hide behind a rush of words. "I'm okay, Mom. Just worn out from the road, crashed early. Sorry I didn't call." A pause. I heard her breathing as she searched for how to ask. Will you stop by today? I baked your favorite apple pie, and I want to see you, baby." 5 years is so long, and the phone just isn't the same. I closed my eyes. That warm, careful voice nearly cracked something inside me. But I couldn't go over there right then. Couldn't sit at the same kitchen table where we celebrated my graduation, my last birthday before I shipped out, and pretend everything was fine. Of course, Mom. I'll come after lunch. Promise. I ended the call before she could ask anything about Emily. I headed to Mom's around 3 in the afternoon after forcing down something like breakfast and grabbing a shower. Her place looked exactly the same. Small, cozy, white picket fence, flower beds she tended with religious zeal. I parked and sat in the car for a good 5 minutes, bracing myself. The door opened before I could knock. Mom stood there petite, gray hair pulled into a bun, wearing her usual floral apron. Her eyes shone wet when she saw me. "Aiden, my boy," she said, wrapping me in a hug so tight it felt like she feared I'd vanish. "Oh, sweetheart, I missed you so much." I hugged her back, realizing how much smaller and more fragile she felt. Or maybe I was the one who'd grown harder and heavier from years in uniform. "I missed you too, Mom," I whispered into hair that smelled like lavender and home baking. We went into the kitchen where the pie was indeed waiting, still warm, with a kettle and 2 cups beside it. Mom fluttered about, pouring tea, slicing pie, filling me in on neighbors, the rough winter, how Mrs. Parker next door finally sold her old Ford. I listened and nodded, but inside I was hollow. All that coziness, normalcy, domestic calm, it felt like a stage set hiding something raw and ugly behind it. "Honey," Mom finally fell quiet and looked at me seriously. "Where's Emily? I thought she'd come with you. Or is she at work?" I set down my fork. The piece of pie stuck in my throat. "We're not together anymore, Mom. She left for Tom Reeder 8 months ago." Her face shifted surprise, then sympathy, then anger. "Has she lost her mind? How could she, when you're over there risking your life? That girl always seemed a little flighty to me, but I thought—" She stopped when she saw my expression. "Don't, Mom. Please don't. It's done, and I don't want to talk about it, okay? Let's just eat pie and talk about something else." But the conversation wouldn't stick. Mom tried to ask about my service, and I gave short answers. She asked if I was job hunting. I nodded without details. When the pauses got too long, I stared out at her garden, and she fell quiet too, unsure what to say. An hour later, I said goodbye, promised to come by again, and drove off feeling guilty that I couldn't be the son she'd been waiting to get back. The next day, I had an interview at Portland Logistics, a mid-sized transportation company. I put on my one suit, now a little big from the weight I'd dropped these last months, and drove into the city. The office was standard issue. Gray walls, fluorescent lights, rows of cubicles where people stared into monitors. They led me to a small room where a hiring manager sat a man in his mid-40s with glasses and a light smile that never reached his eyes. "Mr. Clark, right? Have a seat, please," he said, gesturing to the chair. "I see you just got back from military service. 5 years in the Army, Captain Impressive. Tell me why you want to work here." I fielded the usual questions, answering clearly and to the point. I talked about my supply chain logistics experience in the Army, leading a team, staying effective under pressure. But minute by minute, I felt him pulling away. His smile got tighter, his gaze more guarded. "That's all very good, Mr. Clark, really," he said at last, closing my folder. "But you see, we're looking for someone with more specific civilian logistics experience. Your background is certainly impressive, even overqualified for the role, frankly, and I'm afraid you might get bored, want something more." I listened to his brush off and felt a quiet anger rise. Overqualified. The classic line. What he really felt was fear. Fear of hiring a veteran who might be unstable, unpredictable, carrying trauma. I saw it in his eyes. "I understand," I said, standing. "Thanks for your time." Out on the street, I climbed into my car and smacked the steering wheel with my palm. Once, again, until pain cut through the fog. They don't get it. Nobody gets it. That evening, I bought a bottle of whiskey. I hadn't planned on it, just went in for groceries and came out with a bottle. Back home, sitting in the dark living room, I poured glass after glass, trying to drown the voices in my head. But with every glass, the voices got louder, and suddenly I was there again. Afghanistan, Kandahar, October, 2 years back. We're rolling in a convoy down a dusty road, sun punching through even behind the lenses. Zach's riding shotgun, chewing gum, telling some dumb joke about a cowboy and a donkey. The guys laugh, and I grin too, even though the joke really is dumb. "Captain, what do you think Emily's gonna cook you for dinner when you get home?" Zach asks, winking. "Something good, I hope. Maybe that signature lasagna of hers. God, I miss real food." "Lasagna," Zach echoes dreamily. I'm dreaming of a steak. Big, juicy steak with potatoes. And beer. Cold American beer, not this local swill. Then the radio screams, "Contact left, contact left." A blast. The ground leaps. The truck flips. I'm airborne, then I hit something hard. Ears ringing. Smoke. Screams. I claw out of the rolled Humvee, coughing, trying to get bearings. "Zach, Zach, where are you?" He's 5 meters away, not moving. I crawl to him, rounds snapping overhead, somebody shouting orders, but all I hear is the ringing. "Zach, hang on, man, hang on." I roll him and see blood. A lot of blood. His eyes are open but looking through me. Captain," he barely moves his lips. Tell my mom, I was thinking of her." "Don't you dare, you hear me? Not now, Zach. Medic, I need a medic here." But his eyes are already empty. I hold his hand and feel the life leave his body, and something in me breaks. I stare up at the sky, at that damn desert, and make myself a promise. I am going back. To Emily, I am going to live the life Zach didn't get to live. I woke on the floor, drenched in sweat, my heart pounding wild. The bottle lay beside me, half the whiskey spilled into the rug. I stood, swaying, and grabbed my phone. 3 in the morning. Without thinking, I opened social media. I hadn't logged in for months, not since the army. I found Emily's profile. Her latest post was from a week ago, a photo. She and Tom at some party, both smiling, his arm around her waist. She looked happy, truly happy. Something in me finally cracked. I dialed her number. The rings. 1, 2, 3. "Hello?" Her voice sleepy, a little worried. "Aiden, is that you?" I froze, listening to her breathe on the other end. What did I want to say? That I hated her, that I loved her, that she destroyed the one thing I held on to. "Aiden, please, say something. I know you're back. I know you read my letter. I'm so sorry." I cut the call and tossed the phone on the couch. My hands were shaking. I slid down the wall and sat on the floor, staring into the dark until the gray of dawn filled the room. The war was over, but I was still fighting. Only now the enemy was inside me, and I had no idea how to beat him. A week after that night, I tried to avoid crowds. But on Saturday morning, Mom called and practically ordered me to meet her at the fall fair downtown. She said it would help me get back to normal life, meet people again, feel part of the community. I didn't want to go, but there was so much hope in her voice, so much faith that it might help that I couldn't say no. The fair took over the town square, with dozens of tents selling local crafts, produce, hot food. The air smelled like baked apples, cinnamon, and fresh bread. A local country band was playing. People danced and laughed. Kids ran around with cotton candy. I walked beside Mom while she happily browsed the booths, bought some homemade jam and a knitted hat for the neighbor. I smiled and nodded, but felt like a stranger in all that cheer. Too loud, too many people, too many sudden movements. My hand kept drifting to my waist, where a sidearm used to hang. "Sweetie, look, Mrs. Gardner is selling her famous cherry pies. Remember how you loved them as a kid?" Mom tugged me toward one of the tents. I was about to answer when I saw her. Emily stood by a flower stall, holding a bouquet of yellow chrysanthemums. She wore a light denim jacket and a white knee-length dress, simple, but everything looked perfect on her. The wind lifted her chestnut hair, and she smiled as she chatted with the vendor. Time stopped. The sounds of the fair dulled to a single hum, and all I saw was her. My pulse jumped. My chest squeezed like a fist had closed around my heart. "Aiden, can you hear me?" Mom's voice came from far away. Emily looked up, and our eyes met. She froze, the bouquet nearly slipping from her hands. Her eyes widened surprise, guilt, and something else I couldn't read. "I'll be right back, Mom," I muttered, barely aware I'd spoken, and started toward her. People parted in front of me, and after a few long seconds I stood there, not knowing what to say. We stared at each other, and I could see the quick beat of her pulse at her throat, the way her fingers tightened around the stems. "Aiden," she said my name so quietly it sounded like she feared it might break me. I didn't know you'd be here. I wanted to call after that night, but I thought you needed time." "Time?" The word came out sharper than I meant. "How much more time, Emmy? You've had 8 months to decide what you need. Seems like that's plenty, isn't it?" She flinched, and I regretted my tone instantly. But the anger I'd held down all week blew through, and I couldn't stop it. "I deserve that, I know." Her voice shook. "I deserve your anger, your hate, everything you feel. But please let me explain. Not here, not now, but can we talk somewhere? Just us." I wanted to say no, to turn and walk away, leave her there with her flowers and her guilt. But a part of me, the part that remembered how we fell in love, how she laughed at my dumb jokes, how we dreamed about our future, that part nodded. "The park, by the old lake, in half an hour." I didn't wait for her answer. I turned and walked off, feeling her gaze burn between my shoulders. Mom met me near the exit, worry written all over her face. "That was Emily, wasn't it? Honey, are you okay? You went pale the second you saw her." "I'm going, Mom. I'm sorry, but I have to talk to her. Just the two of us. I'll pick you up later, okay?" She started to object, then saw something in my face that made her only nod. "Be careful, Aiden, and remember whatever happens, I'm on your side." The lake lay on the edge of town in a small park ringed with pines and oaks. Emily and I used to come here a lot when we first started dating. I kissed her for the first time here. I asked her to marry me here a week before I shipped out. I got there first, parked by the entrance, and walked to our old bench by the shore. The water was still, mirroring the gray clouds pushing in from the west. In fall, the lake always looked lonely, abandoned. After 15 minutes, I heard a car. Emily stepped out of her little Honda, the same one we drove on those summer nights years ago. She walked toward me slowly, and with every step my heart beat harder. She sat on the bench, leaving a safe span of wood between us. We stared at the lake in silence, words caught in my throat. "Do you remember the first time we came here?" she said at last. "It was July, the heat was brutal, and you decided we had to swim, even though I said the water was probably cold. You jumped first and leapt back out shouting you were freezing, and I laughed so hard I fell into the grass." "I remember," I cut in. "I remember everything, Emmy. Every moment, every word, every promise we made. That's why this hurts so much." She turned to me, eyes filling with tears. "I was scared, Aiden. God, I was scared every day and every night. When you didn't call for weeks, when the news showed another blast, another set of casualties. I went to bed not knowing if I'd wake up a widow. I felt like I was losing my mind, losing myself to the waiting, the fear, the uncertainty. I was scared too." The words came out louder than I meant, and birds lifted from the trees. "I was scared of every explosion, every bullet, every mission that might be the last. But you know what kept me going? You. Your letters, your voice in my head, the promise that I'd come back and we'd be together. That was the one thing that kept me from giving up." She was crying now, tears running down her cheeks, and she didn't try to wipe them away. "I know, and I'm so sorry you can't imagine how much. But I couldn't. I couldn't keep living in that limbo, caught between hope and despair. And then Tom, he was there, he listened, He understood. He understood. I couldn't hold back the sarcasm. Tom, who has never in his life held a weapon, who has no idea what it's like to lose your best friend in your arms. He understood you better than I did. Is that it? No, she snapped back toward me. He didn't understand better, but he was here real, alive. And you were only in letters, in memories. With every passing day, you drifted farther away. Even in your letters, I felt you changing, felt something inside you breaking. And I was afraid that even if you came back alive, I would lose the Aiden I knew and loved. Her words hit me harder than any punch, because she was right. The war had changed me. I was no longer the carefree guy who dreamed of simple happiness. I had seen too much death, too much horror, to be the same as before. A memory crashed over me like a wave. Oregon, 3 years earlier. Emily and I are walking a forest trail. She's holding my hand, laughing at something I said. I stop, pull her close, and kiss her, feeling her smile against my lips. Promise me, she whispers, holding me, that when you come back, we'll get married here, in this forest, among the trees, under the open sky. Promise. I promise, I answer, kissing her forehead, and nothing on earth will stop me from coming back to you. Even if the whole world goes up in flames, I'll find my way home. She smiles, and I see in her eyes a boundless faith in us. But I didn't keep my promise. Not completely. I came back, but not as the man who left. And she felt it before I admitted it to myself. Maybe you were right, I said quietly, almost giving way. Maybe the war really did take that Aiden, and now I don't even know who I am or what I'm supposed to do next. Emily reached out her hand. I thought she was going to touch me, but she stopped halfway and let it fall. I'm not asking you to forgive me now, she said. I don't even know if I have the right to ask at all, but I want you to know what I felt for you was real. My love was real. It's just, sometimes love isn't enough to withstand fear and loneliness. I looked at her, the woman I'd known my entire adult life, and felt something finally tear loose inside. She was right about one thing. Love isn't enough. You also need faith, patience, the strength to hold on together when everything around you is falling apart. And we didn't have enough of that. I need to go, I said, rising from the bench. Aiden, wait. She stood up too. I'm not finished. And I can't listen anymore, I cut in. Not now. Maybe someday I'll be able to hear the rest, to understand, even to forgive. But not today. I started toward the car, but her voice stopped me. He's here. Tom is here, at the fair. He didn't know you were coming. I didn't tell him I was meeting you. But if you go back, be careful, Aiden. He's got a proud streak, and he might say something. I didn't answer. I just got in the car and drove away, leaving her standing alone by the lake. Fate had other ideas. Driving back to the fair to pick up my mom, I saw him. Tom stood by the entrance, talking with some friends, a beer mug in his hand, laughing loudly at something. He looked good, too good, tan, healthy, wearing an expensive jacket and trendy boots. Hair carefully combed, face satisfied, a man for whom everything had worked out. He saw me before I could turn away. His smile flickered for a second, then returned different now, tight, challenging. Aiden Clark, he shouted, drawing eyes our way. Well, I'll be damned, it's really you. The war hero came home. How's it going, old friend? He walked up, hand outstretched, and I saw in his eyes a mix of guilt, bravado, and something like fear. I looked at his hand, then his face. Every muscle in me went taut, my fists clenched on their own. One punch. I needed only one punch to wipe that fake smile off his face. Don't you dare call me a friend, I ground out, ignoring his hand. His smile widened, but I saw his jaw tighten. Hey, I get that you're upset, but let's be civilized, okay? It's a fair, there are families, kids around. We don't want to make a scene, right? Civilized, I stepped toward him, and he flinched without meaning to. You want to talk about civilized when you were sleeping with your friend's fiancé while he was risking his life thousands of miles from here? People started stopping, watching us. I felt their eyes, heard the murmurs, but I didn't care anymore. Look, that's not how it happened, and you know it. Tom lowered his voice, trying to stay calm. Emily made her own choice. I didn't force her. She came to me because she was lonely, because she was scared, because she needed somebody who would be there. Not my fault you decided to run off and play soldier instead of staying here and taking care of your woman. My hand moved before I knew it. I grabbed his jacket collar and yanked him so close I could see his pupils blow wide with fear. Say it again, I whispered. Go on, say play soldier one more time, and I'll forget we were ever friends. Aiden, let me go. His voice had lost its confidence. Aiden, my mother's cry cut through the red haze in my head. Son, let him go, please. Hands were pulling me back. Slowly, with an enormous effort, I pried my fingers loose and shoved Tom away. He stumbled, nearly fell. Stay away from me, I said softly, and there was enough threat in my voice that he nodded at once. I turned and headed for the car, hearing my mom hurry after me. People drew back, and in their eyes I saw fear, judgment, pity. The veteran who snapped. An unstable man, dangerous. Maybe they were right. In the car, my mom sat in silence, stealing worried glances at me now and then. I drove gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles went white. He's not worth your anger, son, she said at last, gently. Neither is she. You came back alive, and that's what matters most. Everything else will sort itself out somehow. For the next week after seeing Emily and Tom, I barely left the house. I drank, slept, woke up, and drank again. Mom called every day, but I ignored the calls or answered briefly, insisting I was fine. The lie came easy, much easier than the truth. Friday night. I sat in my empty house staring at the ceiling, feeling the walls press in. The silence was deafening, louder than any blast. I couldn't take it. I got dressed and drove to the Saddled Horse, a local bar on the edge of town where the regulars were laborers, truckers, and anyone who wanted to get drunk without running into people they knew. It was a dim place with low lighting and the smell of beer and cigarettes despite the no smoking signs. Behind the counter stood a bartender in his 50s with a Marine Corps tattoo on his forearm. He gave me a nod when I took a stool. What'll it be, friend? His voice rasped from years of smoking. Whiskey, double, and leave the bottle if you don't mind. He raised a brow but said nothing, just set a glass and a bottle of Jack Daniels in front of me. I knocked back the first pour, feeling the burn take my throat. I poured a second, a third. With each glass, the world blurred a little and the pain dulled a little. The bar filled up slowly. A crew of construction guys loudly dissected a game. A couple in the corner talked in low voices, and by the pool table 3 guys played rack after rack. One of them, a tall kid in a ball cap with the local team's logo, laughed big as he told his buddies some story. I tried not to listen, kept my eyes on my glass, but his voice cut through the alcoholic fog. And this moron tells me he served in the army, like I'm supposed to respect him for that, he crowed. I told him, man, I pay taxes to feed and clothe you, so you don't owe me anything. You chose to go shoot at deserts, so don't whine now about benefits and respect. His friends laughed, and something in me clicked. I turned slowly on the stool and looked at the kid. Say that again, my voice came out quiet, but the bartender tensed instantly. He smelled trouble. The guy in the cap turned to me, his smile fading a notch when he saw my face. Hey man, I wasn't talking to you, so relax and keep drinking, okay? I'll ask you one more time. I stood up, and the room went still. Repeat what you just said about the military. Listen, buddy, I don't know what kind of day you had, but I was just joking with my friends, no need to get all. He didn't finish. I reached him and yanked his t-shirt, pulling him close enough to see fear spark in his eyes. You think that's a joke? I whispered. You think it's funny to mock people who lost friends, family, and pieces of their bodies, so idiots like you can sit here and drink your beer in peace? Hey, let me go. What the hell? He tried to twist free, but my fingers only dug in tighter. His buddies surged toward us. Someone grabbed my shoulder, I released the kid and spun to face the hand. A tall man with a neck tattoo, mean eyes, fists already clenched. "Easy there, Grandpa, no need to play hero," he growled. Grandpa. I was 32, but to him I probably looked old, worn thin by war. It only stoked the fire. My fist flew before I thought. It caught his jaw. He reeled and slammed back into a table. His friend lunged, and we crashed to the floor, scattering chairs. Someone shouted the bartender was calling the cops, and I just kept swinging, not feeling the hits I took in return. Suddenly, I wasn't in a bar. I was there, in Kandahar. Dust, screams, explosions. An enemy's face in front of me, I strike, shove, fire. I have to survive. I have to protect my men. Enough, I said enough. A voice cut through the red fog. Strong arms pinned me, forced my face to the floor. "Stand down, soldier. That's an order." That last word, order, pierced the haze. I stopped fighting, sucking air, tasting blood. They hauled me up, and I saw 2 police officers. One older, maybe in his 50s, looked at me with a mix of sternness and understanding. "Hands behind your back," he said, not too harshly, and I complied. They walked me out past every stair in the place. The kid in the cap sat on the floor, pressing a napkin to his lip. His buddy held a busted brow. I felt hollow, spent, like after hours of fighting. At the station, they put me in a holding cell, a small room with a bench and bars. I sat there for hours, sobering up and realizing what I'd done. A brawl, assault, maybe a record. The only thing I had left my military reputation was now at risk too. When the door finally opened, I expected the older cop. Instead, a man in plain clothes came in, the sheriff, judging by the badge. Short, solid, gray-haired, with a scar running from temple to chin. "Captain Clark," he said, taking the bench across from me, hands folded. "I'm Sheriff Michael Thompson. I served in Vietnam, if that means anything to you. And right now I'm deciding what to do with you." I said nothing, staring at the floor. "Those boys at the bar refused to press charges," the sheriff went on. "The bartender, old Joe, said they started it. So technically, I can let you walk right now. The question is, should I?" I raised my eyes to meet his. "I've seen your kind hundreds of times," his voice softened. "Guys who come home and can't find their place, who carry the war inside and don't know how to let it out. I was that guy. For 5 years after Vietnam, I drank, fought, almost lost my family until someone reached out a hand." He took a card from his pocket and held it out. "Support group for veterans. They meet in the church basement every Wednesday and every Friday. I know you think you don't need it, that you can handle it alone. But look at yourself, son. You are not handling it. You're drowning. And if you don't grab this lifeline, next time I won't be able to just let you go." I took the card and turned it in my fingers. "Veterans Support Center. We understand because we were there." "Next meeting is tomorrow evening at 7, the sheriff said, standing. "I'll walk you in myself if you need it. Or you can show up on your own. Your call, Captain. But make it fast while there's still something to save." He knocked on the door. The guard opened it. "You're free to go. Your car's at the bar, keys on the counter. And Clark," he paused in the doorway, "thank you for your service. For real. Now it's time to thank yourself and give yourself a chance to live." I got home at dawn. My face ached, my knuckles were split, my body throbbed from the shots I took. I looked in the mirror and saw a monster's swollen lip, a shiner, a wild stare. The card was in my pocket. I pulled it out and stared at the address for a long time. A support group, sitting in a circle with strangers and talking about my problems. It felt absurd. I was an officer. I was used to solving problems on my own without outside help. But the sheriff was right. I was drowning. And if I didn't grab hold of something, I'd sink for good. The next evening, 6:45, I stood at the entrance to an old Methodist church on the edge of town. My legs didn't want to move. Every instinct screamed, run, but I forced myself to open the door and go inside. 3 months have passed since that first meeting. 3 months that changed everything. I didn't become a different man overnight. The nightmares still came, my hands still sometimes shook for no reason, sudden noises still made me flinch. But now I knew what to do with it. I knew who to call when the dark got too thick. Sarah became my closest friend. After every group session, we met for coffee and talked about the war, about how hard it is to come back, about the silly stuff that helps distract you. She told me her story, how she lost a leg in an explosion in Baghdad, how she spent a year in rehab, how she wanted to quit a dozen times. But she didn't. You know what helped me? She said one evening as we sat on the bench outside the center. Realizing I could help other people, that my pain, my experience could be useful to someone else. It gave me meaning, a new kind of meaning I'd been looking for. Her words stayed with me. A week later, I went to Frank with an offer. I want to volunteer. I want to help the young vets who just came home. I don't know if I'll be any good at it, but I want to try. Frank smiled, warm and genuine. Aiden, you're already helping just by showing up here every Wednesday and Friday. But if you want to do more, welcome to the team. We always need people who understand. So I started working at the center. At first, I just talked with newcomers, shared my story, listened to theirs. Then I began running small sessions for guys with heavy PTSD like mine. I helped them find therapists, file their benefits paperwork, and I simply sat with them when things got rough. One day, a young kid came in, maybe 22, with empty eyes and trembling hands. His name was Marcus. He had just returned from Syria after 2 years of service. He sat in the corner, wouldn't look anyone in the eye, answered every question with a single word. I saw myself in him. The me who came home 2 months earlier, broken, lost, on the edge. I sat beside him without saying anything. Just sat, letting him feel he wasn't alone. After 5 minutes, he spoke. My friend stepped on a mine right in front of me, he said flatly, though his hands were clamped on his knees so hard his knuckles were white. 1 second he was walking next to me, joking about something, and the next, he was gone. Just gone. And I'm standing there, alive, untouched, and I can't figure out why. Why him and not me? Survivor's guilt, I said quietly. I know that feeling. Lived with it for months. Still do, if I'm honest. But you know what I figured out. Your friend wouldn't want you to waste your life on guilt. He'd want you to live for both of you. Marcus turned toward me, and something shifted in his eyes. How do you live when everything inside feels dead? 1 day at a time, I said. 1 hour at a time if you have to. You come here, you talk to people who get it. You find something that gives you meaning. For me, it turned out to be helping guys like you. For you, it might be something else. But you keep looking, okay? You don't give up. He nodded, and I saw tears rise. He cried quietly, deeply, years of bottled pain spilling out. I put a hand on his shoulder, and we just sat there until he was done. Driving home that evening, I felt something unfamiliar. Lightness. Small, barely there, but real. By helping Marcus, I helped myself. I realized my life could have meaning, even after everything. A memory surfaced out of nowhere. I'm 17, standing at my high school graduation. My mom is beside me, smiling through tears. I look up at the sky and promise myself, never give up. No matter what happens, no matter how hard it gets, I will fight. Always. I didn't know then how hard it would be. I didn't know about war, loss, pain that feels endless. But I kept my promise. I didn't give up. Even when I wanted to let go of everything and walk away. 2 more weeks went by. I started to feel better, not perfect, not pain-free, but better. I learned how to breathe when panic rose. I learned to talk about Zach without falling apart. I learned to look toward the future, even if it was foggy. One Saturday morning, I woke up and realized I was ready. Ready to let go of the last piece of the past still holding me. I went up to the old attic storage where I kept boxes. I found the one I needed, the box with Emily's letters. Hundreds of letters she had written over 5 years. I pulled out the one that came a month before I returned. The last one before she disappeared from my life. My dear Aiden, I miss you so much I sometimes can't breathe. Just a little longer, and you'll be home, and we'll finally be together. I dream of the day I see you on the doorstep. I promise I'll never let you go again. Forever yours, Emily. Forever. What an empty word it turned out to be. I slipped the letter into my pocket and drove to where it all began, to the lake, our lake. The sun was bending toward the horizon, the sky washed in orange and pink. I walked to the water's edge and took out the letter. I don't blame you, Emmy, I said aloud, as if she could hear. You did what you thought was right. I still don't fully understand. It still hurts to think about it. But I forgive you. And more importantly, I forgive myself. For Zach, for everyone I couldn't save, for not becoming who I promised to be. I took out the lighter I'd carried since the army. I touched flame to the paper's edge and watched fire swallow the words, the promises, the dreams that would never come true. When the letter was nearly gone, I let it go. The wind caught the ash and scattered it over the water. I stood there watching the sunset and, for the first time in many months, felt something like peace. Not happiness, not yet, but peace, acceptance of what happened, and a readiness to move on. My phone rang. Sarah. Hey, Aiden, Frank, and a few of us are going to the movies tonight. Want to come? Nothing heavy, just hang out, eat popcorn, laugh at some dumb comedy. I smiled, really smiled, and it felt natural. Yeah, I'll come. Give me half an hour. Great, see you, Cap. She hung up, and I looked at the lake one more time. The sun had almost slipped beyond the horizon, leaving the last streaks of light. But I knew, after every sunset, a new dawn comes. I headed to the car, got in, and drove away from the lake, from the past, from the pain. Not running, just moving forward, toward new people, new chances, a new life I was building step by step. The war changed me forever, but I'm still here, still breathing, still fighting, still living. And that is already a win. Emily found her happiness. Zach deserves for me to live my life with honor. And me, I'm finally ready to give myself that chance. Hit like and don't forget to subscribe. The next story will be even more intense. But if you are under 18, don't even think about clicking next.